The room smelled of ozone and fear. High Chancellor Zeltraxis blinked his translucent lids once, twice, then turned to his leftmost advisor with a stiffness that betrayed his irritation. Around them, the Grand Chamber was filled with over 200 representatives of the Galactic Empire's core species, each seated in their respective elevation tiers, each silent. Even the Alkari, who spoke in triple-voice sonics, remained still, their vocal sacs clenched in reverent quiet. The Chancellor stood. The Terrans have refused again. A murmur rippled across the chamber, followed by the low chime of disbelief. Zeltraxis lifted a finger, silencing the crowd with a mere twitch. For the fourth time, they have dismissed our envoys. One of them responded by transmitting the sound of a human laugh. The other, he hesitated, the weight of the words like lead in his throat. Simply stated, "Get off our lawn." An uncomfortable shuffle spread across the room. A few of the species who had directly interacted with humans looked away, remembering lost fleets and inexplicable defeats. The Vietheri ambassador, whose species had once ruled 5 sectors before encountering Earth's forward fleet, muttered something bitter in their native dialect. It translated roughly to, "We warned you. They do not yield. They endure." Counselor Zeltraxis' leftmost advisor, Verzal of the Diplomacy Corps, inhaled slowly through his spherical vents. His species, the Zenarii, had evolved from burrowing pacifists. Yet in that moment, Verzal looked as if he could dig straight into the heart of Earth itself if it would bring clarity. "They are not like the others," he said. "No," replied the Chancellor. "They are worse." It had been 87 cycles since humanity had been granted provisional observership in the Galactic Accord. What had begun as cautious optimism had rapidly eroded into confusion, then dread. Where other species negotiated, the humans calculated. Where others compromised, they maneuvered. And where most feared the Empire's immense fleets and governance, humans responded with indifference or mockery. The humans had no central leader the Empire could speak to, no unifying religion or singular culture that could be swayed. They were fragmented, and yet terrifyingly unified when it counted. Their armies didn't march. They deployed. Their ambassadors didn't flatter. They smiled, cold and calm, with words that cut deeper than most Empire-class energy blades. Verzal had seen the tapes. He had studied every recorded interaction, every grainy orbital image of human countermeasures, every intercepted transmission. He had read the reports of entire invasion fleets vanishing after engaging Terran colonies. The footage usually cut out before anything useful could be analyzed, but the audio would always pick up one thing. Message received. You're not welcome here. And then, nothing. No bodies. No debris. Just silence. I request assignment, Verzal said, surprising even himself. Let me go. Let me speak to them. You. Chancellor Zeltraxis tilted his skull. You think words will reach where fleets could not? No, Verzal said, rising slowly. But perhaps it is not words they reject. Perhaps it is weakness disguised as diplomacy. I will speak to them as they are. And if they kill you? Verzal bared his teeth, a gesture considered polite among the Zenarii but discomforting to others. Then they will have heard us at least once. The room fell into tense silence. Then, one by one, the elevated tiers of the galactic representatives began to light up green. Approval. The mission was sanctioned. Earth spun quietly beneath Verzal's vessel, a stark, blue marble against the void. The approach vector was unchallenged, but Verzal knew better than to consider that a kindness. The humans had seen him coming days ago. Their satellites tracked everything. Some weren't even visible on standard sensors. That was the unnerving part. As he prepared to descend, Verzal reviewed his message again. The phrasing had been refined 100 times over. There were no threats, no suggestions of subjugation or control. Just an invitation. Understanding. His ship's AI, tuned to his vitals, noticed his rising stress levels and dimmed the lights in the chamber. Too late. His skin had already begun to pale at the tips, a Zenarii sign of existential dread. The transmission pinged back. A simple audio file. He played it. It was laughter. Human laughter, amused, casual, as if the Empire were nothing more than a comedian's punchline. Then a voice. We're not interested. Go home. Verzal stood frozen for 5 long seconds before tapping into the ambassadorial protocol. He would land anyway. Formal channels had failed, but perhaps face-to-face contact would shift the equation. Humans still had emotional triggers. They weren't purely logical, despite their reputation. The shuttle touched down in a location they'd specified, an isolated stretch of highlands somewhere called Colorado. Verzal stepped out into air laced with oxygen, nitrogen, and latent aggression. They were already waiting. A tall human approached, female, dressed in a black suit that shimmered faintly at the seams. Her hair was tied back with the precision of a soldier, though no insignia adorned her clothes. You Verzal? She asked. Yes. I bring. There was no security detail. No weapons visible. Just her. That was what unsettled Verzal most. Verzal opened his mandibles slightly. But, you haven't even heard the terms. We don't care. He stared at her. You would refuse peace? You misunderstand. We are at peace. You just think you're the ones who get to define it. A long silence passed between them. Wind rolled across the plateau. Distantly, the sounds of Earth's life echoed, avian calls, shifting trees. It was a calm setting for a conversation teetering on the edge of galactic consequence. Verzal reached into his side satchel and removed a small orb, projecting a 3-dimensional map of galactic space. Your position is untenable. You're surrounded. We know. Then why? Because the moment we accept your version of peace, we give you permission to erode us. Slowly. Legally. Politely. Verzal blinked. That is not our intention. Intentions don't matter. Outcomes do. She took a step closer. We've studied you too. You don't colonize anymore. You assimilate. Quietly. Thoroughly. You don't conquer with weapons. You do it with culture, policy, and law. She looked at the map. We don't fear your fleets. We fear becoming like you. Verzal was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, and what will you do if the Empire takes your refusal as a declaration of war? We won't start a war. But we will end it. She turned to leave. Consider this meeting your one success. We listened. Verzal watched her walk away, the orb slowly dimming in his hand. Back in orbit, the ambassadorial ship rose into the void like a silent accusation. Verzal didn't bother to encrypt his report. Let the council hear it raw. They will not join us. Not through diplomacy. Not through force. They are not interested in our peace. They are not concerned with our threats. And they are not afraid. They will stand alone, not because they must, but because they choose to. And we would do well to remember, the last species to misunderstand their resolve no longer exists. The channel cut. Below, Earth remained indifferent. And in the heart of the Empire, the silence that followed the message was more deafening than any war cry. The message echoed in the council's chamber long after it had ended. Not because of its content, though the threat was implicit, but because of its tone. Controlled. Absolutely certain. That was what unnerved them most. Not rage. Not desperation. But certainty. High Chancellor Zeltraxis leaned forward on the ancient rail of the high seat, his claws tapping a nervous pattern known only to his species. The others noticed. No one spoke. No one dared. It was the Vrakan diplomat who broke the silence. They will not yield. Not to threat, nor bargain. Zeltraxis didn't respond. He turned slowly to face the ring of advisors gathered just beneath the throne dais. We offered peace. We offered inclusion. They spat it back with a smirk. A hologram activated in the center of the chamber, showing Earth's orbital signature. A patchwork of energy sources, satellite systems, and stations, many intentionally designed to appear weaker than they were. The more the Empire observed, the more discrepancies they found between human signal emissions and actual energy yields. It was a shell game, and the humans always seemed to win. Verzal stood beside the image, the scarlet collar of his formal robes barely fluttering under the chamber's controlled airflow. They don't fear us. Because they believe they are more dangerous than we are. Are they wrong? Asked a voice from the Zethari cluster delegation, their translator drone hovering. Verzal didn't answer. Because in truth he didn't know. The council debated for hours behind closed barriers. Verzal remained outside, watching the simulation scroll across a side display. Projections showed dozens of possible paths forward. Each ended in destruction. Some of Earth, yes, but just as many ended with the dissolution of the Empire itself. He knew better than to trust models. But he also knew how close the margins had become. He hadn't eaten in 2 cycles. Sleep was brief and fragmented. He didn't fear death. His kind welcomed the fold when it came, but he feared understanding too late. The doors opened. A guard signaled him in. Zeltraxis looked older than he had a day prior. There was no decree, no speech. Just a sentence. You will go back. Verzal blinked. To Earth. Yes. With the final offer. He tilted his head. And if they refuse? They won't. He studied the Chancellor's face. You don't believe that? No, Zeltraxis admitted. But I want to hear you tell them what happens if they don't. Humanity did not meet Verzal in Colorado this time. Instead, a vessel met him in orbit, no larger than a courier pod. It matched his ship's speed, synchronized trajectories, and opened a corridor. Verzal stepped into the airlock and found himself in a pressure-stable chamber not unlike his own vessels. Except everything was colder. Sterile. Not lifeless, but designed to avoid comfort. Humans, he thought, did nothing by accident. The woman from before was already seated. She hadn't aged, though her eyes looked more tired now. We expected you again, she said, no trace of welcome in her voice. I was sent to deliver a final offer. She raised an eyebrow. Final? This is not a threat. It never is. Until it is. Verzal took a breath, then projected the terms. They floated between them, clean, clear, and absurdly generous by most standards. Autonomous governance. Resource independence. Even military non-intervention guarantees. But the final line undid it all. Cultural alignment standards. A slow erosion by another name. She didn't even pretend to read them. You still don't understand us. I've spent cycles trying to. Then you've wasted them. She stood. Do you know what we used to be? Before space, before unity? He stayed silent. Predators. Apex ones. Our history is carved in war. Not because we loved it, but because we had to endure it. And in that fire, we found something you didn't. We found the ability to resist comfort. We can starve and survive. Burn and rebuild. You offer us a gilded cage and expect us to bow because the floor is soft. Verzal shifted. You speak as if we are deceivers. She smiled faintly. No. You're honest in your arrogance. That's what makes it worse. There was silence then. Thick and still. Verzal broke it. The Empire will not accept another refusal. She looked at him, not unkindly, but as one might regard a child approaching a flame. Then the Empire will do what empires always do. And will do what we always do. He wanted to argue. Wanted to shout. But there was nothing left. So he returned to his ship, and Earth receded beneath him, quiet, composed, and utterly unmoved. Back on Zenarii, he was welcomed with silence. The council didn't summon him for days. The networks filled with speculation. Some called him a failure. Others, a traitor. Still others, a martyr for attempting peace where none could bloom. But one day, a message came. Private channel. Untraceable. The screen lit up with static, then resolved. A human face. Older man. Uniformed. You must be Verzal. He nodded slowly. We're going to help you. The ambassador tensed. What does that mean? You're about to be part of something unpleasant. And we've decided we like you enough not to let you die with the rest of them. What are you talking about? The man leaned forward. You told the truth. That matters more than you know. When the Empire moves, we'll respond. And when it falls apart, there will need to be voices like yours. The feed cut. Verzal sat alone, unsure if he'd just been threatened or offered salvation. In the citadel, preparations began. War engines were fueled. Fleets assembled. The Council released a controlled statement. We are enforcing unity for galactic stability. It was, by all accounts, the beginning of a war. But Earth said nothing. They mobilized nothing. Their fleets remained docked. Until they didn't. A mining station in the far wards vanished. Not destroyed. Gone. The entire moon it orbited too. No signals. No warnings. No claims of responsibility. Except for one phrase burned into the recovered edge of a drifting cargo shell. We told you no. Panic gripped the outer colonies. Small species began closing embassies, pulling back from imperial treaties. The Freylin declared neutrality for the first time in 600 cycles. In the council chamber, Zeltraxis stood again. They are not an enemy we can defeat conventionally. No one objected. But we must respond. Everyone stayed silent. Verzal rose from the side. Then respond as they expect. And how is that? He stared forward. With silence. With fear. With preparation. Zeltraxis narrowed his eyes. And surrender? No, Verzal said. With something worse. The Chancellor hesitated. Worse. Recognition. The chamber fell quiet. Earth did not respond to further probes. Their silence had become the galaxy's new sound. The Empire did not formally declare war. Never had to. Its ships appeared along the edge of Sol's influence one by one, not as an invasion force but as a reminder. No weapons fired. No ultimatums. Just presence, precise, clinical, unyielding. And Earth still said nothing. For 3 standard weeks, the fleets sat in orbit of the Kuiper Belt. Observing. Waiting. Probing. One scout vessel approached Neptune's gravity well and vanished within a minute. Another, sent to chart Titan's moon base, returned entirely intact but with its crew non-responsive, alive, breathing, but blank-eyed and speechless. The Empire labeled the incidents as accidents. Glitches. Exposure to anomalous energies. Internally, no one believed it. Verzal remained under observation at the Citadel, no longer a representative, not quite a prisoner. The Chancellor neither dismissed him nor consulted him. He had become something worse, irrelevant. He passed his time in silence, surrounded by scrolls of outdated diplomatic treaties and ancient texts on failed empires. Patterns emerged. Repeated mistakes. Arrogance dressed as benevolence. Control disguised as unity. It was always the same, only the names changed. One morning, an aide arrived. The humans have sent a message. Verzal looked up slowly. To the Empire? No. To you. It came on a physical device. Crystal disk. Obsolete technology, but functional. Deliberate. He loaded it into the interface. No hologram. No encryption. Just a voice. You're the only one we think might understand. It was the woman again. You've spent your life trying to unify species that don't want to be unified. We've spent hours avoiding the ones who pretend it's mercy. We are not your enemy. But if you come, we will break you. Not for survival. Not for fear. But because we can. Verzal rewound the message 3 times. Each repetition felt colder. Then came the coordinates. Not Earth. Not anywhere the Empire had charted. He made his decision in minutes. By the time the Chancellor summoned him, his ship was gone. The craft was small, barely equipped for long range, but quiet, unregistered, and unimportant. That made it perfect. The coordinates led to a dead zone between systems. A place the Empire had never charted because it had no value. No atmosphere. No signals. Just cold. Until Verzal arrived. The facility was buried beneath a layer of synthesized rock, invisible until you were close enough to crash. It opened with no greeting, no defenses. As if they had always known he would come. Inside, the temperature adjusted immediately to his biology. The lighting matched his vision spectrum. And the corridor smelled faintly of his childhood homeworld. An impossibility. They learned more about me than I know, he whispered. The woman met him at the central chamber. No security. No guards. Just her. You shouldn't have come alone. I didn't, he said. but they won't arrive in time. She smiled faintly. So you did understand. I want to know, he said. Why the games? The silence? Why let it come to this? Because empires never believe words. Only silence. Silence makes you question everything. Noise is easy to dismiss. He studied her. And now you see why we can't join you. Because your system requires submission. Even when you say otherwise. We tried to offer peace. No, she corrected. You offer dominance without violence. He opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. You can't fix it. You can't apologize for an engine built to consume. He lowered his eyes. Then why let me in? She looked at him with something almost like pity. Because someone will need to tell the truth after. They struck without weapons. The first wave disabled every quantum relay across 3 sectors. Not jammed, erased. Entangled particles dissolved. Entire communication networks collapsed in a breath. The second wave hit logistics, fuel production, food synthesizers, artificial gravity controllers. Not a single life was taken. But across the Empire's border worlds, life stopped. Panic followed. Then Earth moved. For the first time in living memory, human ships emerged. Not from Earth. Not even from known space. They rose from voids between galaxies, vessels of dark metal, seamless and soundless. Each appeared silently in orbit of major command worlds. No weapons active. Just presence. A message broadcast galaxy-wide. This is not conquest. This is consequence. The Empire fractured. Dozens of species withdrew. Old alliances crumbled overnight. Rebel cells once dormant now moved openly. Verzal stood in the center of it all, watching the collapse not with satisfaction, but sorrow. He had warned them, tried to understand them, and now he would bear witness to what happened when understanding came too late. The citadel burned, not from human weapons but from its own inhabitants. Infighting, betrayal, panic. Zeltraxis was found dead, not in battle, but by his own hand, his final message a single word. Wrong. In the aftermath, the humans retreated. They didn't demand surrender. They didn't dismantle what was left. They simply left. And no one chased them. Verzal returned to the Void facility, months later. It was gone. Not destroyed, just never there. Only the message remained. You cannot tame what refuses the leash. He wandered the outer systems after that. Not as a diplomat. Not as a leader. As a story. The one who saw the end coming and understood. In time, a new order rose from the ruins. Not an empire. Not unity. Something more dangerous. A galaxy that had learned to say no. And mean it.